In the 15 plus years I've been taking care of women, I have met few women who enter perimenopause with optimal health. Many of us enter perimenopause with fatigue, autoimmune issues, low thyroid function, gut issues, a deregulated stress response system, brain fog, metabolic syndrome, blood sugar issues, irregular menstrual cycles, and the list goes on. And when I recently surveyed several thousand women in perimenopause about their most disruptive symptoms, weight gain was on the list. Well, it always is. But what stood out the most was the mood issues, the brain changes, a lack of stress resilience, a lack of focus, and a lack of mental energy. And did I mention that over 70% of these amazing women in perimenopause that I surveyed were also moms, holding space for their entire family, expending a lot of mental and emotional load while making dozens of decisions every single day. And I can full body relate. I am these women. Now, full disclosure, as I prep for this episode, I am currently in the late luteal phase of my cycle. That means I'm about 3 days before my period. And whatever stress resilience I had about 4 to 5 days ago vanished out the door without permission. How dare you? Well, to be fair, some months are better than others. That's the thing about perimenopause, is it can be so unpredictable. Some months you're doing great. Other months it feels like your brain just went down the toilet. Now, these brain changes that kind of lead up to my period can be jarring, to say the least. It can be so unpredictable, and I find myself grasping at all the tools in my toolbox just to keep calm and grounded. Now, just last night, I spent 2 hours in a transformational breathwork session facilitated by these amazing women, and there were 16 of us in the room yelling, breathing, doing all the things as we tried to re-regulate our nervous system. And yes, most of these women were in perimenopause just like me. Now, breathwork is one of the many modalities I'm going to be sharing with you today, because if there's one thing I know for sure, over 65% of women in perimenopause will experience a lack of stress resilience. And really what that looks like is it just feels overwhelming, or you feel more irritated or more triggered, along with mood changes that don't always feel very favorable. At least they don't for me. There are days when I struggle with perimenopausal rage. Yes, this is a thing, and it can feel super scary and unnerving to feel so untethered for 3 to 5 days out of my 26-day cycle, because that's a lot of days where I feel like I'm being possessed by a deregulated version of myself. Unfortunately, due to a lot of childhood trauma, I grew up with a deregulated nervous system and complex PTSD. See, very little of my childhood felt safe. And as a result, I operated in survival mode for most of my 20s and a little bit into my 30s, not knowing I was operating from a place of trauma. I just thought I was a high achiever. And I know that millions of people struggle with trauma and the impact of that trauma on their brain and body. Honestly, I don't know anyone who doesn't have some level of trauma. And there's something about perimenopause that seems to bring everything up. Let's be honest. Everything comes up to the surface for review. I always say that this time in our lives, this perimenopausal transition, is a reckoning, because everything is up for review. All of a sudden, everything that we haven't faced, wants to be faced head on. Like, we are meant to see ourselves and create boundaries and decide, what we're willing to tolerate and what we are not. And it can feel deeply alarming and disconcerting, especially, again, when it happens without permission. Like in the middle of a week where you are doing big time mom stuff and you're like, I don't have room to be dealing with my past trauma. I get it. That was me this week. I get it. Like an old enemy, this is how it's felt a lot of times over the last year. But most importantly, where it really felt, where it hit me hard, was last summer, back in June of 2023. Really, the inevitable happened. Obviously, it was going to happen. After years of balancing my hormones and working so hard to not experience PMS, perimenopausal rage, I felt a dramatic shift in my mood. It was something that felt familiar, like, again, like an old enemy, because I had been on the receiving end of it as a child, but something I had never personally felt. About 5 days leading to my period, I suddenly felt so angry. It felt like everything in my life felt insurmountable and beyond hard. And I felt like I was crawling out of my skin. It was a very dark and scary place, and it took everything in me to not explode. Now, initially, I was in a bit of denial because I had just had a really big concussion. And I thought that my brain had been scrambled so badly that I was having crazy mood swings, because I've read a lot of research that people with concussions can experience mood swings, depression, and rage. So I thought, well, maybe that's something that's going on with me. And quite possibly my brain injury due to those two big concussions in June last summer that happened literally a week and a half apart from each other absolutely contributed to elevated mood symptoms. I'm not 100% sure. I feel like so often when these types of things are happening to us, that it's not just one thing, right, that we can identify. Also around that time, because of the brain injuries, I had to stop breastfeeding because I had to get on a pretty serious concussion protocol. And I have a feeling that that led to massive neurotransmitter and hormone depletion. So it's not fully clear what happens to women who have children in early or mid perimenopause and the impact that it has on their brains and body, right? Because we just go from postpartum to perimenopause. And I will say that I have a feeling that it has a profound impact on the brain, mainly because we know that women's brains majorly change and recalibrate 3 times in our lives. The first time is during puberty, right? When our bodies are coming online regarding our reproductive system. The second time it happens, where we see a major brain reorganization, is in pregnancy and postpartum, right? And that's why mom will tell you, like, who I was before the baby, before pregnancy and postpartum, is not who I am afterwards. Like, your brain is just different. You are a different person. And then the third time that we experience a pretty big brain reorganization and recalibration is in perimenopause. So I've been very curious to wonder what happens to women who are postpartum and in perimenopause. Do we have like these 2 major brain reorganizations that happen just back to back or at the same time? I know that when I talk to women who have children in their 40s, that their perimenopausal journey can feel very intense and come on very suddenly. So again, we don't have a lot of research on this at all yet. Hopefully someday we will. All I do know right now is that I'm struggling with less stress resilience, mood swings leading up to my periods, along with debilitating 2 to 3 day migraines, which doesn't help fight deep irritation and bouts of anger. Having a 3-day migraine along with feeling under-resourced and a bit irritated is not the best combination when you're trying your hardest to be a positive, present, compassionate, and patient mom. But through it all, I have so far been a pretty compassionate, patient, loving mama through the process. I think who gets the brunt of my irritation is definitely my husband, Alex. And it is my commitment to heal myself and my trauma, as I know it's connected to this whole experience. And I really owe it to myself and to my son, right? Because I believe that we all deserve to experience joy and peace and groundedness and energy. Right. And that's the reason why I'm doing this episode is I want to get any of us who are struggling with this feeling a little bit more well-resourced and feeling the come through is more peace, more calm, and more joy. Now, one of the areas I'm looking deeply into particularly is my past trauma and my stress patterns. I know that chronic stress has a big impact on the body, and that really can't be ignored, especially as you navigate perimenopause. And my why for you today, if this is something that you're struggling with too, that you tap into some of the tools and the strategies that I'm going to be sharing with you, and that you find a path towards peace and harmony that feels true for you, because you deserve it. You deserve the peace and you deserve all the joy in your life. And as I mentioned earlier, I'm going to be sharing what I am doing during this perimenopausal journey, but I also want to speak into what's happening in perimenopause to exacerbate these mood changes, to create less resilience, and to even kind of, ratchet up the rage, and what you can do to honor and nurture your body during this powerful transition. also known as our second puberty, right? We're kind of on the descension. I believe Dr. Carrie Jones calls it an unconscious uncoupling, right? We're uncoupling these neurotransmitters with these hormones, and it can feel like a rocky and turbulent ride. Now, I want to dive into what we know about mood changes in perimenopause because there is literature that suggests that perimenopause holds the highest risk for psychological disorders in women compared to pre and post menopause. In fact, one study found that for 70% of women, irritability is the most common symptom. And it's really aligned with the survey that I did as well. That some of the most, like of the top 10 symptoms, when I looked at that survey, the majority of those symptoms were brain related. And that really speaks to the profound changes that happen in our brain during this transition. So again, fatigue, mental fatigue, mood swings, irritability, lack of stress resilience, sleep issues, hot flashes. I mean, this is all brain derived, right? Overwhelm. All of this is brain derived. So it's not surprising that the majority of the symptoms that I saw in my survey were really brain driven. Now, some healthcare providers suggest that having strong PMS symptoms throughout your life may mean that you are more likely to experience drastic perimenopausal mood swings. In a study published in the Journal of Obstetrics and Gynecology, investigators found that PMS sufferers were twice as likely to experience hot flashes and mood swings as they approached menopause than women who did not have PMS. And I can definitely relate to this for sure. If this sounds like you may want to watch out for other symptoms of perimenopause that include obviously irregular menstrual cycle periods. That's going to happen. That's literally what perimenopause is. Remember, perimenopause is a transition. It's not a disease state, right? But it can lend to symptoms. Difficulty sleeping, brain fog, vaginal dryness, muscle pain and soreness, loss of libido. I mean, I have a whole episode that actually breaks all of the symptoms of perimenopause that I will link to inside of the show notes of this episode. Now, if you're experiencing symptoms like these, I recommend seeing a menopause or perimenopausal expert and even running some labs so you can get some insight as to what's going on with your body. Now, a functional doctor or a doctor who specializes in perimenopause and menopause can confirm what you're dealing with and at least validate what's going on with you. And then hopefully they can create what I call kind of a comprehensive functional plan to help ease your symptoms. So I want to just get to the meat of this. Why does perimenopause irritation and rage even happen? Well, there are many different reasons why mood disorders occur in perimenopause. Among them are hormone changes, obviously. I mean, I feel like that's the big one, right? Estradiol, progesterone, and even testosterone are dropping. And yes, there are other hormones involved as well. Insulin, thyroid hormone, cortisol, these are all major players as well. So it's not just the sex hormones. It can be a number of hormones because hormones do not operate in a silo. They are an orchestra, right? Inflammation. So one of the big things that happen as we enter into this transition, we see more inflammation and really due to declining hormones. Structural brain changes, again, due to declining hormones. Lifestyle factors. So, this is the big thing that we are all coming into perimenopause with is, maybe we were living our life a certain way and all of a sudden it's not working anymore. So we get to we get to tend to our bodies in a way that we align lifestyle habits with us feeling more vibrant and alive. Predisposing conditions, so other things that are going on, maybe like an autoimmune condition or low thyroid function or metabolic issues, and then socioeconomic factors, and then obviously the one I've been talking about as well is trauma or a deregulated stress response system due to past traumas. Now, much of the research has suggested hormone shifts are mainly responsible for the changes in emotions that occur during and in the menstrual cycle, right? We know that the ebbs and flows of the menstrual cycle can have a profound impact on our mood, right? I always say that everybody wants day 13 version of us, right? High follicular phase. And few people want, late luteal, right? Day 26, day 27. But we have to love all of ourselves, the way that our hormones are fluctuating. Unfortunately, in perimenopause, it gets to be very, very turbulent, right? Our hormones they're having major, major ups and then major, major downs. So one main focus on mood disorders associated with the menopausal transition is, again, these fluctuating sex hormones, particularly estradiol and progesterone. Estrogen, we know, helps produce serotonin and has many other profound effects on the brain, including modifying the production of endorphins. Estradiol levels normally range from 5 nanograms per deciliter to 35 nanograms per deciliter in premenopause and can dip below 1.3 nanograms per deciliter in postmenopause. These shifts can result in an estrogen withdrawal, leading to mood symptoms associated with depression and anxiety. Now, we don't usually typically see estrogen withdrawal until late perimenopause, but even in women in early perimenopause, we can see disruption in our kind of our regular hormone flow throughout our cycle. That has very much been the case for me. I have felt estradiol completely deregulated, even at times where it should be more robust. Along with the perimenopausal estrogen decrease, so we see a variance in menstrual irregularity and a variance of ovulation, right? We know that there's going to be anovulatory cycles. That's kind of what's kind of throwing everything off. We know that there's going to be HPO axis deregulation, so hypothalamic pituitary ovarian axis deregulation, and it's that deregulation that really throws us for a tailspin. And this causes fluctuations in follicular stimulating hormone and even progesterone and luteinizing hormone. So all of it starts to deregulate from the brain to the ovaries. Now, allopregnanolone, which is a downstream progesterone metabolite, has been said to modulate GABA A receptors, resulting in anti-anxiety and antidepressant effects. But when progesterone decreases, which is it's literally the first hormone that's going to decrease in perimenopause, in early perimenopause, this lowers the activation of the calming neurotransmitter GABA, driving more mood changes during that late luteal phase, basically approximately 5 to 6 days leading up to your period. And for me, oh my gosh, it is such a hard stop moment when I hit day 21, day 22 of my cycle. It's like I become a different person. It's like the veil has been lifted, or vice versa. The veil has been put over me. And it is a veil of no stress resilience, a veil of a lack of, grounding and peace and more mood swings. And I know that it always has to do with the fact that both progesterone and estradiol are starting to drop right around that time for me. So let's talk about the brain changes. So estrogen obviously has many different effects on the brain, as I mentioned earlier, making it a probable agent for these emotional outbursts, including raising serotonin and serotonin receptors, modifying endorphin levels, the feel-good hormones, neuroprotection and potential nerve growth stimulation. Specifically, estrogen levels have been linked to brain-derived neurotrophic factor, so BDNF, in animal studies, and BDNF is responsible for growth and the health of nerves. It is expressed in the hippocampus, an area of the brain related to memory and emotion, so that's in the limbic system, and the modulation of prolactin and dopamine. So there are a lot of things. Also, the decline in estradiol in the brain leads to increase in inflammation and increase in inflammasomes in the brain. So now that you have an overview of the changes that take place with your hormones and the brain, all right, and this is just an overview, it goes so much deeper than that, I want to share some of the functional labs to consider when trying to get to the root cause of the perimenopausal brain changes, mood symptoms, irritability, all of that. So some popular panels. One, you could just go and get your serum labs ran at your doctor's office. If you're still cycling, you have a normal cycle, try to aim for 7 days prior to your period. That would be the best day to run estradiol, progesterone, testosterone, total and free, sex binding globulin. I mean, just run the whole thing. Maybe AM cortisol levels, just to get a sense of what's going on. If you want like a deeper dive into your hormones, again, testing around that day, but with a Dutch test, right? A dried urine, complete hormone, like comprehensive test. So the Dutch test is an extensive sex and adrenal hormone profile. It evaluates free cortisol patterns, like literally diurnal 24-hour cortisol patterns, organic acids, melatonin, along with androgen, progesterone, estrogen, cortisol, and cortisone metabolites. This test is an excellent comprehensive analysis of patients' hormone levels, giving you all the information you need for baseline hormone assessment or monitoring hormone replacement therapy. Another comprehensive panel I recommend is Vibrant America Hormones Panel. So this is serum blood testing, which assesses 13 different sex hormones related biomarkers that are important for women's health. And it definitely looks into perimenopause. Another panel I would 100% run when you go to your annual exam, or if you're dealing with some of the symptoms around thyroid issues, I would just go in and say, hey, I have a feeling that I'm dealing with low thyroid function or subclinical thyroid issues. Please run a thyroid panel. And we know that estrogen interacts with thyroid levels. Thyroid hormone function should always be assessed in perimenopause just to see what's going on. It is also important to monitor thyroid function with any hormone replacement therapy because of estrogen's impact on thyroid binding globulin, so TBG, and free thyroid hormones. Right now, I'm on thyroid hormone. As you know, I have Hashimoto's thyroiditis, and I take Armour. I take a desiccated thyroid that has both T4 and T3 in it. And I'm also on hormone replacement therapy right now. And so I'm carefully monitoring both of these, usually every 90 days or so, just to make sure everything is okay. Next, if you want to dive deeper, you can get a neurotransmitter test due to the interaction between sex hormones and neurotransmitters and lifestyle and our neurotransmitters. Let's be honest. A practitioner may choose to test neurotransmitter levels as well during the perimenopausal transition. Now, this is not typical. You're going to have to work with a functional doctor. I remember when I ran my neurotransmitter labs with a dear friend of mine, Dr. Donnie Wilson, I literally had no neurotransmitters. I was like, uh-oh. Now, mind you, I ran these in 2023 when I was still breastfeeding. So I was like, gosh, maybe it's still postpartum. But I was completely depleted. And I've been working very hard to replete my neurotransmitters, especially when they get depleted in perimenopause. And then the last test I would look at if you're just really having a hard time getting things back to equilibrium for yourself is looking at gut function. So the gut microbiome plays a significant role in hormonal and mood disorders, and it significantly shifts and changes in perimenopause due to declining estradiol and progesterone levels. So a comprehensive stool test like the GI map test can offer a complete look at gut health by measuring pathogens and analyzing digestion, nutrient absorption, inflammation, and immune system function. And so again, if you have been looking at all the other labs and you've been trying everything and you're still struggling, I think a gut function test is that next step. And probably one of the most important things I tell women in perimenopause is to love your gut and liver, because your gut and liver are very responsible for hormone metabolism, especially estradiol and estrone and estrogen metabolism. And so ensuring that your gut is functioning, especially during a time when the microbiome is changing due to declining hormones, is very important. And there's some easy things that you can do. I mean, probiotics, digestive enzymes, fermented foods, lots and lots of fiber, aiming for at least 30 grams of fiber every single day, 3 to 5 servings of fermented foods. I mean, that alone make a huge difference. Focusing on an anti-inflammatory protocol and diet, that'll also help as well. So hopefully getting some of these labs will identify a couple areas to focus on and where you can use some support. Now, I just want to preface this in saying that so many of us are struggling with deregulation to begin with, right? None of us, almost none of us, were taught how to regulate as children. I don't know about you, but I was always told to shut up, be quiet, like know your place. And it was, if anything, even at times where I was abused and I was dealing with a lot of trauma, I was always gaslit. I was always told to be quiet. I was always told that, just get over it. You'll be fine. Yeah. See how that panned out. And so most of us, especially women, were told that it was better that we were quiet, that we were people pleasing, and that, we just kind of were quiet in the corner. And so I would say that the majority of us as adults struggle with regulation. Doesn't make it easier. And so even though it's important to be looking at your hormones, I think hormone replacement supplementation is super critical here, making sure that you're meeting your nutrients. And I'll go over that in just a second. But I think most importantly is being intentional about regulating your nervous system. And the reason why I think I'm struggling a little bit this go around this month is that this last week, when normally I buffer myself, I build in a lot of these tools, I build in a lot of these rituals, my week was intensely busy. I mean, it was crazy slammed with amazing projects, amazing things that I'm doing, which I'm super excited to share with you very soon. but there was very little time for me to regulate. And because of that, I feel like my stress response system, my PMS symptoms are just a little bit elevated more than normal. Like this is kind of a more of a wild, tumultuous ride than most late luteal phases that I experience. So one of the things I always walk away recognizing is that, okay, what did I do to tend to myself? How was I intentional about regulating myself, especially as a mom to a preschooler, a 3.5-year-old? Like, I really need to be regulated in order to help him regulate, right? I am the ultimate regulator for my son. And if I'm deregulated, well, that ain't helping nobody. So, again, I'm able to regulate for him, but there have been moments when I haven't been with him that I'm just like, oh my gosh, I am literally teetering at a tipping point. So I want to speak into what are some of the best tools in your toolbox to help you regulate, whether you're in perimenopause or not. Whether you've got, you're dealing with hormone shifts and changes, I think we all deserve these tools, and we all deserve this level of self-care and self-tending to, so that we are regulating ourselves, that we feel calm and joyful in our bodies. And I think that's what it's all about, right? How can we learn to regulate our stress levels, our nervous system, so that we feel good in our bodies? So the first thing, my first favorite way to do this is to be out in nature, to calm our minds and to give yourself a boost of energy. The simple act of grounding or earthing, which means having direct contact with earth via gardening, walking around barefoot, swimming in natural water, or using a grounding mat, right? That's available. Significantly reduces cortisol levels and improves vagal nerve tone. Additional research shows that just 10 minutes a day spent outside in a green space, right? In your backyard, at a park, at the beach, walking out in nature will reduce stress and enhance your well-being. Getting outside within 1 hour after you wake up is even like multifold. It will fire up your mitochondria. It will help to balance out cortisol and help with the cortisol awakening response, especially if you're waking up super groggy and tired, and helps to reset circadian rhythm along with reducing stress and, again, giving you more energy. And so I will tell you that if there was a habit that I am committed to consistently, it is getting outside in nature as much as possible. Another thing I recommend is making sure that you've got enough electrolytes. So I love adding electrolytes to my water first thing in the morning. I have them right now. I'm drinking them as I'm doing this. Element is one of my favorite brands. I love their orange salt. The orange salt, raspberry salt, and grapefruit salt. I mean, whatever electrolyte works for you. But one of the first things I do in the morning is to make sure that my electrolytes are replenished and that I'm hydrated. Another thing that I find is really helpful is avoiding excess sugar and ultra-processed foods. Because again, inflammation is stress, and it's going to wear on your brain. It's going to wear on your resilience. And so I always recommend eating metabolically healthy meals. I have so many podcast episodes about this, but it's really about eating antioxidants, micronutrients, omegas, making sure that you're eating fiber, fermented foods, protein that is super, high quality. You get pairing your carbs with fiber and fats and protein, reducing the amount of sugar you're consuming. All of that is really about, eating a meal that is really designed to support your cellular energy. Next is treat sleep like it's $1 million meeting. So just commit to that deep, restful sleep, or at the very least, commit to the sleep routine and sleep hygiene so that you set yourself up for success. Better sleep is absolutely essential to restoring optimal HPA axis function. And, you got to find that sweet spot for yourself. I know that anything less than 7, I feel like hot garbage the next day. So I try to aim for at least 7.5 to 8 hours, sometimes even more. Basically, I put my son down and then I prep for bed and I go to bed. That's it. Because I know that no matter what time I go to bed, I'm getting up at 6:45 a.m. when my son gets up at 6:45 a.m., period. So I can either take care of myself and get my butt to bed, or I can feel like garbage the next day. And this has made the biggest difference. Again, if I go to bed early around 9:30, I don't wake up depleted. If I stay up till 11 p.m., game over. It's over. I'm going to feel like complete garbage the next day. Next, one thing I do, I never skip this is, because again, I'm like every tool in the toolbox, and what is the easiest tool I can implement? And adaptogenic herbs is one of the simplest tools I can implement. So I take adaptogenic herbs like rhodiola and ashwagandha. These really work at down-regulating again, deregulated HPA axis, hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis, aka the stress response system. So when I say a deregulated stress response system, I'm talking about that HPA axis, right? Because when we have a deregulated stress response system, it's going to completely mess up our vagal tone. It's going to completely deregulate us. We're going to feel more triggered. We're going to feel overwhelmed. We're going to feel super irritated. We're going to feel it in our body, right? And it's not going to feel good. The other thing I love, especially at night, is drinking chamomile or holy basil tea, also known as Tulsi tea. Now, what I love about ashwagandha is that it boosts the ability to combat chronic stress levels while restoring proper reproductive function, especially when your libido is concerned. Other benefits including supporting memory and cognition, as well as alleviating symptoms associated with depression and anxiety without side effects. So ashwagandha is a game changer. Rhodiola is probably my absolute favorite because it helps fight against stressors that are plaguing the body, and it will revitalize overall wellness. The body-mind connection greatly benefits from rhodiola. It helps to balance our mood, it fights fatigue, and it fights distress. And combining these two really creates an amazing blend of sustainable energy and just an aliveness and overall body support. So I have both of them at great levels, like, what I call like really good biological levels inside of my Adrenal Love blend. It's got all of my favorite adaptogens in there. So if you're looking for a great adaptogen support, Adrenal Love in the Essentially Whole store is great. Vitamin D, I cannot tell you how many labs I look at every year and vitamin D levels are beyond low or out of range. So please take 5,000 IUs with K1 and K2 support. Activated B complete, so making sure that you get a full spectrum vitamin B supplement, because again, we burn through folate and B12. I love hormone balance as well because it helps with hormone metabolism, supports the gut and the liver. Especially in perimenopause, I feel like having something that's kind of cleaning things up for us just makes things so much easier, makes us feel more stable throughout the month. And again, all of these are available in my Essentially Whole line. Other supplements I recommend, obviously magnesium glycinate, especially at night. Now, in that late luteal phase, that 7 days leading up to your period, bump up your magnesium glycinate to 800 milligrams or even 1,000 milligrams. Play with that. See what happens when you do that. And you may find yourself getting better sleep, having more mood regulation. I do a lot better with more magnesium in this part of my cycle. I go back down to 600 milligrams for the rest of it. But in this week, I definitely crank it up. Omegas, I usually recommend 1,000 to 2,000 milligrams a day to just reduce inflammation. Probiotics, digestive enzymes, and then I love creatine for brain function. I love CoQ10, and I also love polyphenols as well. So a good antioxidant blend, and maybe depending on your levels of inflammation, consider a glutathione, a liposomal glutathione. So those are just some things. Again, I don't want the list to be too insane when it comes to the non-negotiables, but those are some things to consider. The thing that, again, I want to speak back into walking. So when I'm talking walking, I'm talking about little mini walks throughout the day, especially if you feel like you really need to reset and regulate. So if you've got the bandwidth to take a walk in the morning, a walk in the afternoon, a walk in the evening, I'm talking by yourself, a walking meditation, a tech-free walk, totally up to you. I'm listening to romantic fantasy books right now, like the Kindred Curse Saga, When the Moon Hatched, the Empyrean series. I'm listening to Throne of Glass right now as well, the whole Throne of Glass series by Sarah J. Maas. So I am deep into the world of fantasy at the moment, and I will tell you, it has made the most profound difference in my life because it's easy, it's light. I've got so many book besties that I'm comparing with. And so when I'm walking, I usually have my earbuds in and I'm usually listening to one of these books. If I'm not doing a walking meditation, I am listening to romantic fantasy. I have no problem admitting that. I'm telling all of my friends, I've gotten so many book busties right now because I think all of my friends who are in midlife are looking for that thing. Now, is it a yes and? Yes, I'm listening to romantic fantasy and I have a trauma-informed therapist, right? So just note that it's a yes and. So in my multiple walks a day, sometimes I only have 5 minutes. Sometimes I have 10 minutes. Sometimes I have a full 30 minutes. It just really depends on how the day shapes up. But I'm always aiming for 10,000 plus steps a day. And I try to get all of those 10,000 steps, or a majority of them, outside in nature. And this has been the most effective, dirt cheap method for, regulating my stress response system and reducing my stress levels. Another thing that is absolutely free is meditation. So, and I get that all of this is time cost and opportunity cost, but to me, if it means I have a regulated nervous system, I will figure it out. So meditation has been proven to improve vagal nerve tone, reduce inflammation, reduce stress, and help to recalibrate your brain. I get that these days are not super easy, but there are some great meditation apps. One of my besties in the whole world, Emily Fletcher, has Ziva meditation. I am actually leaving next week for a Dr. Joe Dispenza retreat in Denver. It's gonna be the first time I've been away from Kingston for more than 3 days. But again, I'm just so ready to regulate my nervous system. I typically do Dr. Joe Dispenza meditations at least 20 minutes a day. I can find time to do that. We can all find time for 20 minutes to clear out the cobwebs and to re-regulate ourselves. Again, I mentioned very early in this episode, breath work, right? And there's one of my dearest friends, Sam Skelly. She owns a company called Pause Breath. And Pause is amazing. And it's all facilitated breath work. A lot of it's holotropic breath, but she's got all different types of breath available. Breath if you need more energy, breath if you're feeling anxious. I mean, they meet you in every realm. If you just want to do it for 5 minutes or you want a full-on hour journey, I think having something like that is just wonderful. But honestly, even doing a 4, 7, 8 breath where you are breathing in for 4 seconds, holding for 7, and exhaling for 8 can really make a huge difference. So just note that there's all different types of breath work. Every 2 weeks, I do the facilitated transformational breath with the women who facilitate it, who are just amazing women. And man, I feel like I clear years of trauma in one of those sessions. And so I would just be looking out in your area. Are there, facilitated breathwork workshops, in your area, or at the very least an app, right, that you can tap into? Another thing that can be really helpful to kind of get that energy out, kind of help to regulate cortisol levels, is dancing. And it can be any type of dance. It could be dancing in your house with your favorite playlist. It could be a dance workout that you do at a dance class. It could be with your partner. It could be solo. It can be with a group of friends. A group of friends of mine and I are going to a dance workout class next week on Friday before I leave for Dr. Joe Dispenza. And it's just an opportunity for us to all get together during the summer and to dance it out. So again, get in where you fit in, whatever works for you. Another thing that I find is really helpful, and I get that this is, I know for some of us it could feel like a luxury, but alone time. Especially in a week like this, I just need to be by myself. So taking time to relax and nourish your creative side, especially if you're a busy mom, is essential to heal from chronic stress or a deregulated nervous system. When you are pelted with a million questions and decisions every single day, it's no wonder we feel deregulated, especially when we're going through perimenopause. Like, those are multiple assaults on all angles, right? So what could alone time be? It could be walking. It could be reading a book. It could be drinking a cup of tea or coffee. It could be whatever. Lock yourself in the bathroom. Take a really long shower. Whatever it means. I'm like, what are all the things that I do to escape, right? Driving the car by yourself. Whatever it looks like. Yesterday, I was really at my peak zone, and I really was. I mean, I felt like I did a lot of supermom activity yesterday. I took my son to breakfast, and we had such a sweet time. I took him to gymnastics because he loves gymnastics. So he has a gymnastics class every Saturday morning after gymnastics, because it's just down the street from Legoland. I took my son to Legoland by himself. And, I packed all the snacks and all the things. And so after 5 hours being with him, and also being, day 24 4 of my 26-day cycle, when I got home, I was done. And so I asked my husband, Alex, hey, could you take Kingston for a couple of hours so that I can just reset? And I solo walked to the beach. Yes, there were billions of families on the beach doing their thing. And there I was by myself with my book, just taking a moment to reset and recalibrate. And I was gone for about an hour. I was just a different person when I came home. I was more regulated. I was ready for dinner time, bath time, bedtime routine, the whole 9, right? The next 3 hours of my day. And I was just so grateful. So again, whatever you do, like, just carve out that time for yourself. Ask your partner to hold it for a minute. Like, can you just hold this for me for a minute? Can you just take this on for me? Can you own this project? Can you own this time with our family? Like, whatever it is, like, create time to yourself. And then the other thing I think is really important here is therapy. If you're having a really difficult time, you find yourself super triggered and angry, and you just find yourself, you don't feel like you have the tools, or that it's deeper than the everyday intentional habits and tools, I highly recommend therapy. And trauma-informed therapy. There probably is some deeply embedded trauma in your cells that is trying to poke its way out, right? Trying to rear its ugly head. And so in cases of trauma, grief, or mental and emotional pain that just won't go away, or you just find itself coming through in patterns, the same patterns just keep getting repeated over and over again, seek out a qualified therapist. So therapies that I have tried are EMDR, rapid resolution therapy, I'm trying to think what I'm doing, IFS right now. There's all different types of therapy. Just find something that works. Obviously, cognitive behavioral therapy, whatever you feel is most aligned for you. Sometimes we just need to talk to somebody, just kind of move things through, right? I mean, that's what a really great bestie is. Having those great best friends that can hold space for you. I have had so many deep conversations with best friends this week. One who is even apologizing because she just hasn't been present because she's been going through so much. And I just wanted to hold the container for her and let her know that even if she's been gone for a minute, months at a time, half a year, it doesn't matter. I am here for them. I get it. Life gets busy. Life just throws all kinds of stuff at us. And sometimes we forget to reach out. We forget to send the voice memo. We forget to schedule in real life get together. I totally get it. It is an effort like everything else. And it's like, do I really have to plan one more thing? I get it. I know and so when one of my best friends apologized for not being present, I was like, girl, I could equally apologize to you. Like, I haven't been reaching out. I haven't been sending the memos, and so, having our best friends, reaching out to our people, and being able to be held by our best friends no matter what. I think that is so important. And so community is the last thing I really want to mention here in terms of just a tool, because so many women are lonely in perimenopause. So many women are experiencing social isolation. We know that social isolation is being compared to smoking a pack of cigarettes a day. Now, I know that seems ridiculous, and goodness knows, smoking a pack of cigarettes a day, far worse, I think, than that. But man, it really has an impact on our bodies, on our brain, on our levels of inflammation. And this is partly because, when we feel lonely, it causes an increased activation of that stress response system. It causes us to feel more triggered. So please, please, please reach out to a friend or family member. We are so blessed with video technology that allows us to talk to friends and family in distant locations. I mean, and I'm talking about like anyone. Like, if you haven't talked to someone in a while, like, send a memo, send a quick little DM on Instagram, reach out. I mean, the worst that can happen is they don't reach out back. They don't respond, right? At least you tried. At least you tried on your side of the street. And then the last thing I love, the very, very, very last thing I love, I promise, is bookending your day with morning and evening rituals. I think it's really important. It's vital that we send our brain safety signals. And one of the best ways we can do that is to preempt the brain. Again, lev up on the brain before the brain starts to freak out. So self-care and morning self-care rituals can be affirmations, breathwork, being positive about your day, eating right, hydration, movement, gratitude journaling, or just saying things in terms of gratitude, prayer, meditation, aromatherapy, day setting. These are all morning rituals that, again, tell the brain, hey, we got this. Today's going to be okay. You are safe. Well, you are good to go. We're going to rock this. We are regulated. And for evening rituals, so again, practicing that sleep hygiene, diffusing calming essential oils like lavender and cedarwood, reading a great novel. I'm telling you, romantic fantasy is where it's at. Literally, Sarah J. Maas alone, who's an author who's been around for at least a decade now, she has sold 4 to 5 million books and has brought on like 2 million readers who haven't read in years. So again, a good novel. I mean, it's right now it's the summertime, but honestly, any time is a good time to just immerse yourself into another world, immerse yourself with a book boyfriend, let go of the day's worries and just escape into another world. Listen to a calming sleep meditation, put away all electronics an hour before bed, do not doom scroll, and maybe even take a hot shower or an Epsom salt bath, take your supplements, do whatever, journal, day plan for the next day so that you feel calm in your body about how you're going to handle the next day. I mean, whatever it looks like, do the thing that works for you. For me, it's books. I'm so grateful that I am reading novels again. It has been such a gift. I cannot tell you. It has brought me more joy and more levity than anything. Okay, well, maybe not my hormone replacement therapy. And that's the last thing. That's the very, very, very last thing is talk to a doctor or a menopause and perimenopause specialist about hormone replacement therapy options. There is a amazing new research study that came out in the UK literally this month that shows that women who are supplementing with HRT, hormone replacement therapy, in the perimenopause, menopause transition have less bouts of depression and anxiety and mood disorders. And so again, if it's because our hormones are declining that we're dealing with these brain changes, wouldn't it make sense to supplement with some of those hormones? Again, a lot of women are candidates for this. Not everyone is. I totally get that. But it's a worthy conversation. It's that or it's antidepressants and anti-anxiety medications, right? And so we know that when after the Women's Health Initiative study kind of came to a halt in 2002, and like 80% of women came off of hormone replacement therapy, over the last 20 years, we've seen a massive uptick in anti-anxiety and anti-depression medication in the demographic of women in perimenopause. So I'd like to believe that as hormones start to come back into play, remember only 6% of women are on hormone replacement therapy right now in the United States. But as we start to see that number rise, I have a feeling we're going to see the number of antidepressants and anti-anxiety medications decline. So although I shared a lot of many different tools and strategies, rituals to actively reduce your stress response system, I want you to know, I don't want you to feel overwhelmed by this episode. You do not have to do all of them. You can pick things that you are like, I am a full body no. But what I do recommend that you sit down and think about what you are a full body yes to. I am a full body yes to reading. I'm a full body yes to alone time. I'm a full body yes to walking out in nature. I'm a full body yes to my supplements and eating metabolically healthy meals. I'm a full body yes to coffee and matcha and hydrating. I'm a full body yes to spending as much time as possible with my besties. So just find the things that you're a full body yes for. And that is your come through, right? That's your come through here, and operate from there. The other thing that's been really helpful for me during this time is boundaries. I tell people that I'm in my Queen of Hearts era. That I am literally like off with your head, and not people, but like things that aren't serving me, things that are a full body no, I'm just like gone. I don't have time for it. I have boundaries around it now. Like I already have enough obligations. I'm already doing big things as a mom and as an entrepreneur and as a doctor and all that. And there's just a lot of things that I'm a full body no to. And I hold that boundary really strong. And so I get to be in my Queen of Hearts era where I'm like, no, it is a no. No, no, no. And there are people in my life where I'm like, I don't got room for you. So again, everything is up for review. And I think that that can be a really positive thing because we get to be very aligned with what's a full body yes. We also get to be very clear what's a full body no. And then just, send it to the chopping block. It's done. So again, pick one or two things to start with. The goal is never to be overwhelmed. Gosh knows that is not what I'm trying to do here. All I'm trying to do is offer support during a time when we really need to protect our energy and our emotional well-being. You deserve to be tended to. You deserve to feel good in your body, and you deserve peace and joy and groundedness, even during a time where it can feel so disruptive and unpredictable. I am here on this journey with you. I am not going anywhere. And I just want to say thank you so much for being here today, listening to this with me. If you loved it, please share it with somebody. If you know someone who really needs to hear this today, please share it with them. Take a moment and subscribe to the show, even rate the show. That way, more women who are looking for these solutions, more women that are feeling irritated and deregulated, they've got somewhere to land. That's my ask. Have a beautiful, beautiful day.